So today was day one of Donald Trump's first criminal trial, a historic day. No president ever in American history has faced a criminal trial, but Donald Trump is the man who now has that title, and it really couldn't happen to a better guy, right? I mean, he's the perfect candidate for it. But there was so much news today, both inside the courtroom, outside the courtroom. This person was saying this, everybody was watching the news pretty carefully. But I think the most entertaining while simultaneously insane story that came out of today was the fact that Donald Trump fell asleep in court. Fell asleep. The most significant moment in his life and one of the most important days in American history was taking place before him, and he fell asleep. He caught some Z's, took a nap. And this has caused a lot of conversation, but especially tonight, Rachel Maddow, live on MSNBC, just went after Donald Trump for falling asleep in the courtroom. How inappropriate. She also talked about the political ramifications of this, the campaign ramifications of this, and I just think her analysis was great. So I'm going to show you that Rachel Maddow clip in just a second, but before I do so, make sure to subscribe down below. It goes such a long way. I greatly appreciate it. It means the world to me. But enough talking. Here is that Rachel Maddow clip.
Get here, the wheels of justice grind slowly. I did not think they would grind so slowly that they would rock the defendant apparently to sleep at the defense table today. I mean, I have to say, I was not there. I do not know if he was asleep. It is possible he was, meditating or just resting his eyes or something. I don't know, but that's those headlines, on the front page of the New York Times, front page of the Washington Post, front page of the Huffington Post, front page of multiple news outlets today coming out of this, that Trump appeared to fall asleep on the first day of his trial. Those are going to stick. I mean, I know it's not the most important legal thing, but we are in the middle of a campaign, and the age issue is the main thing the Trump campaign wants to use against his opponent. The whole Sleepy Joe thing. I mean, this is, as you said, Ari, this is the most historic thing that Donald Trump has ever done. No president ever has been, no former president ever has been a criminal defendant. And on day one, the headlines coming out of it are that he appeared to doze off. And to me, that's just, I mean, it's insane. It's also a reminder of how scary, however scary and somber and important this is. We're also dealing with somebody who is just fundamentally buffoonish. And this will be as much a reminder of that as it is of all the more serious things here that are at stake. This is a...
Yeah. Oh, God. I imagine we're probably going to get a Truth Social rant in the coming hours, or maybe at 3 a.m. tonight from Donald Trump about this segment and all of the people who are talking about him falling asleep. I mean, what a crazy thing. This guy, as she kind of talked about at the end there, this is a serious proceeding, but we also have to know that we are dealing with Donald Trump, one of the biggest clowns out there that there is. I mean, he is just such a buffoon is the word that she used, which I think is pretty accurate, that he would fall asleep in court, right? He would just nod off. He doesn't really care what's going on. Doesn't really know what's going on. I mean, not much is going on in Donald Trump's brain these days, but really loved her analysis. So much to say about this. I think my two big points here are the fact that, look, we've all heard Donald Trump and his allies and his surrogates talk about Joe Biden and his campaign, and they've come up with a variety of names. They're repeating the main one, which is Sleepy Joe. They're always saying, oh, Sleepy Joe, he doesn't know where he is, yada, yada, yada. You've all heard the insane talking points that come from the right on this topic. And I think you know where I'm going with this. The beautiful irony. The beautiful irony. The fact that Donald Trump fell asleep in court today completely destroys this talking point that MAGA Republicans have been pushing. It completely falls on its face now. They have nothing. Sleepy Joe, I think it's Sleepy Donald, because Donald Trump is the only guy who's ever fallen asleep during a significant moment. Joe Biden has never had something like that. That is literally a made-up name that Republicans came up with for Joe Biden to try to combat him in his very successful presidency. They have to have something stick, right? That's never happened to Joe Biden, but Donald Trump is the guy who is falling asleep in court, which was, by the way, verified by multiple journalists at multiple different news agencies. Many of these news agencies had these journalists in the courtroom, watching what was taking place. They couldn't take a picture or video for obvious reasons, but they could write. And all of these different journalists confirmed that Donald Trump fell asleep in court. So, really, who are we talking about here? I think it's Sleepy Donald. That is the overall takeaway here, that it's Donald Trump who's the one who can't stay awake during important moments, not Joe Biden. And genuinely, kind of jokes aside, there is also a very important aspect to this conversation we're having right now, where it's like, if Donald Trump can't stay awake during a court proceeding, one of the most significant moments in his life, if he can't stay awake during that, why does anybody, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever, why does anybody expect that he'll be able to take that 3 a.m. phone call in the middle of night to address a major issue happening at home or abroad? Being able to get up, get down to the Situation Room with his generals or whoever it might be, kind of to evaluate the next steps and be fully 100% at that moment, on going full speed ahead, having the gears moving. If he can't stay awake during court, why does anybody think he'd be able to do that? I certainly don't have confidence in that. If he's drifting off with his lawyers like sitting next to him, like so much happening in front of him, I don't have confidence in that. And I think that is also a very important aspect of this. Like, if he is elected president, God, we have to be worried, I think, because this is becoming, Donald Trump's confusion, his age, his fatigue is really starting to show, both at his rallies when he's getting confused and now falling asleep in court. It's like, this is not Trump of 2016 who was already bad enough. This is Trump of 2024 who's a significantly worse version of himself. And I think the second major point that came to mind for me when I was listening to Rachel Maddow speak and different people talk about the court proceedings today, but specifically this story, is, Trump and his campaign wanted media attention on this trial. And they were hoping to get like generic headlines and get his speeches on Fox News and CNN and MSNBC, right? That's what the whole goal was. That, generic headlines saying like Trump's first trial starts today in New York City, right? That was the goal. They don't want, negative press. They just want any press for him. But now the headline is not just Trump's first trial starts in New York City. It's now Trump falls asleep at first trial in New York City. And this is not just me making this up. You can look at the New York Times and other these major publications. They are talking about this. People everywhere on social media, on Twitter or X, whatever, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, YouTube. People are talking about the fact that Donald Trump fell asleep in court. And we talked about how bad that is for his political messaging, his campaign. But in terms of the headlines that they were hoping to generate today, the news that they were hoping to get, this is a disaster scenario for them. A disaster scenario. They wanted the generic headline just to be able to put out some fundraising links, have Donald Trump send some things out on Truth Social, and instead they got a political crisis. Instead, they got a PR nightmare, and they have to deal with both simultaneously, both with the fact that, Donald Trump's in trial, and he's facing 34 felony counts in this trial alone, and he's the first president to ever do so, which is a PR nightmare in and of itself, a political nightmare as well. But now they also have to deal with the narrative surrounding him falling asleep in court and that being completely contradictory with the points that he has made about Joe Biden. Those two don't mesh, right? Those two don't mesh. You can't say Sleepy Joe, who doesn't fall asleep, and then not say Sleepy Donald, who actually does fall asleep, right? It's just a political nightmare for the Trump campaign right now and the MAGA Republicans. And you're kind of seeing it, right? People are panicking. The Republicans certainly don't want to talk about Donald Trump falling asleep, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it a lot. And we're going to keep hammering that point away until it's ingrained in everybody's minds in the United States. And just to give a couple examples of this exact same thing before we wrap up the video, here's a New York Times article that is on the 5 key takeaways from Trump's first day in trial. And one of the paragraphs in the article says this, but all in all, it seems it could be an exhausting experience for Mr. Trump. At one point before lunch, he appeared to fall asleep. That is in this New York Times article. And aside from this reporting that comes after the trial, anybody who is experiencing real-time trial coverage on the New York Times or even CNN or other major networks got this notification from journalist Maggie Haberman, which I'm sure you've seen, where she confirms that Donald Trump appeared to fall asleep. He drifted off. And as we just talked about, that is the opposite of what the Trump campaign and Trump himself were hoping to get out of this. They wanted some positive headlines, some, Trump trial begins and things that he can fundraise off of. Not quite. You can't fundraise off of that. So anyway, folks, that's going to wrap up the video for now. I really appreciate you watching. I just wanted to show you that Rachel Maddow clip. I think it's so fantastic. Make sure to subscribe down below. It goes such a long way. Drop a like on the video, comment, let me know what you think about everything that happened today, but especially this, and share the video with anybody you think needs to see it. And as always, I greatly appreciate the support. It really means the world to me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.